Well, hello, I'm André Cilliers from TreasuryOne, our Forex man in South Africa. André, what's going on in the Forex markets?
It's an interesting period. Good afternoon to everybody, or in the mornings when they listen. Uh, at the moment, I want to say, really just three things that is, I want to say the key drivers, and that remains the Russian Ukraine war. It remains the China situation with COVID lockdowns and harbor lockdown closures, etc. And then also what happens in the United States in terms of interest rates. The key drivers internationally. Locally, we have a few things. The KwaZulu-Natal situation, a little bit old news and not influencing that much anymore. But now this week we have the South African Reserve Bank and the monetary policy meeting.
Yes, what do you expect with the repo rate?
Well, our inflation figure came out this morning once again at 5.9%, so firmly in the level of the, well, not, I want to say firmly, that's a bit at the upper end of it, but within the range of 3.26%. With fuel prices, and especially at the end of this month, we could see quite a drastic move in fuel prices. It will play out in inflation rates, and that could push us slightly above the 6% in the near future, next month and the month thereafter. I do think that it will come back down within the band again, but that might spur the Reserve Bank, especially on the back of a 50 basis point move by the Federal Reserve not so long ago, to also move by 50 basis points. So I want to say I give it a 70% chance of a 50 basis point move and only a 30% chance of a 25 basis point move. So clearly in the camp of a 50 basis point move when you speak to me.
But if you look at inflation, I mean, South Africa, when it compares to some of the international markets or countries, it actually looks a lot better because I think this morning I read somewhere the UK is heading for 10%. So, in the 6% range, that's actually, it doesn't compare too badly.
Yes, no, we are still doing well, and we are, as I say, within our target bands of 3 to 6%. And also in the US, they are talking inflation above 8%. The last figure there was 8.1. So yes, we are doing better than some of the first world countries at this point in time. But one must take into account that South Africa needs investment into the country. We need investment into our bond market. So our interest rates must be lucrative. And to remain lucrative, we were on the front end. We did start with increases before the UK, before the US. So we are on the front end of increases, but we still need to remain there to attract those investments into the country. One must keep into mind that we are still an emerging market.
Yep. So what does the currency look like? What does the rand look like at the moment compared to the dollar, euro, and pound?
Well, the rand performs relatively well. If we look at, and one should be careful to just look at the rand, the value of the rand against the US dollar, because there we've seen it trading 2 days ago up at the 1630 levels. But that was at the same time that we had seen the euro well below the 104 level. So we were speaking a very, very strong dollar. Since then, we've seen the dollar weakening slightly, trading up to the 105.50 yesterday, around the 105.20 against the euro today. And there we had seen the resilience of the rand immediately, and other emerging markets reacting and trading below the 16 level. If you then compare the rand not just against the dollar, but also look at the euro, then there we've been slightly above the 17 level. We're now trading again at the 1672 level against the euro and at 1975 against the pound. So the rand's still very, very resilient and showing, strongness in the currency.
When the repo rate comes out tomorrow, do you think what effect will that have on the rand?
Well, if we come out at 25 basis points, I think the market will be slightly disappointed and we could see a bit of a weakening of the currency. If it comes out at 50 basis points, we might very well see a slight strengthening because the market is slightly skewed as to whether it's 25 basis points or 50 basis points. So 50 could benefit the currency and could trade us back down to the 1570, 1565 levels. But anything below 50 basis points will definitely most probably take us above the 16 level. What we also have to look out for is what is it that Mr. Netanyahu say during his press conference, how dovish or how hawkish he sounds. So if he still thinks that there's a lot of more interest rate increases to come in the rest of the year, then that will definitely benefit the currency. If he thinks that we will slow down the pace of interest rate increases, it could be negative for the currency. My call would be that we get the 50 basis point increase and that the rand slightly benefit from that, and that Mr. Netanyahu would remain hawkish due to oil prices and fuel prices, etc.
Sometimes I look at sort of the, what is happening in South Africa and some of the instability, and I'm always surprised how resilient the rand sometimes looks, from the outside. Is that a correct perception?
It is a correct perception, but one must always think in terms of the rand. It's an international currency. The rand and the whole South African economy is interwaved with what happens internationally. So 70 to 75% of what happens in the rand market has actually got nothing to do with what happens in the country as such. And so a lot of people look at the negatives in the country, they drive through a pothole, somebody gets killed. And I'm not saying that that's not serious, that is serious factors, but they look at internal politics within the country and they form an opinion on the currency based on that. And that's incorrect, because 70 to 75% is driven by what happens in international markets. And that's why I started off by saying, there's the three key drivers. We have to watch what happens in China. We have to watch what happens in the United States, and we have to watch what happens with the Russian-Ukraine war. Those are the key drivers internationally, and they will remain the key drivers for some time to come and influence the rand as such.
Well, if we can look a bit at some of those, I see in Shanghai, it seems it's easing a little bit, the problems with the harbor there. But that would help.
Yes, problems. Yeah, that would definitely help. That would help the international world in terms of economic growth, because when they went into lockdowns, we definitely did see the impact of that on what is expected in world economies. So with them coming out of lockdowns and easing up slightly, that will definitely be positive. But it's also negative for the oil price in the sense that the oil price it looks slightly elevated because the utilization of oil out of China would be on the increase. Hence, with the shortage of oil at this point in time, because of the Russia-Ukraine situation, that increased the oil price slightly. So that on the inflation side, again, is slightly negative. But there is also talk on when one speaks about the Russian-Ukraine war, the whole situation of import of oil out of Russia into Europe, where some of the European states might veto the decision, and that might release some oil out of the Russian side into Europe. That would again be positive for the oil price because that would increase the supply of oil.
But it seems there's no end in sight for the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, there's no peace talks. Mariupol seems to have fallen to the Russians. So that seems to be a long-term problem, or for the rest of the year, at least.
It's not a problem that's going to go away. Yeah, it's not a problem that's going to go away. When it started, everybody thought that it might go away fairly quickly. If you look at the reaction of European states, if you look at Sweden, you look at Finland, what they're doing in joining NATO, it clearly tells us that they also think that this is in for the long haul, and siding rather on the NATO side, trying to prevent Russia also, invading those two countries. So this is there for the long haul. It's going to be with us for quite some time. And if we really want to see some alleviation on the oil side, then we'll have to see a massive increase in production out of the Middle East area, which is also not forthcoming.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Well, it seems that OR Tambo said they finally getting fuel. Did you see that story?
Yeah, I saw that there was a shortage, and I saw that they did get their hands onto some jet fuel, and that they don't expect any flight delays. These things will crop up from time to time as we continue with this whole situation with the oil and, as I say, the Russian-Ukraine debacle. But I don't think that we should really go into doomsday. I think supply will be there. It will just be expensive supply of product.
Well, it's always nice speaking to André Cilliers from TreasuryOne, and some things were definitely moving tomorrow with the announcement with the repo rate, and where the other factors that you were talking about seems to be not so much changeable at the moment. It seems quite stable. Thank you, André, for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.